welcome. Good afternoon. Thank you for being with us. Again, my name is Tsedey. I'm the director of Just Communities, and you have joined our monthly webinar. It's a beautiful day in Atlanta. I'm wearing my Haitian blue for the World Cup game today. I need some red to complete the look. Um, I'm going to do a quick introduction and then we'll jump into the conversation. For those of you that are new to Just Communities, we are an initiative of the Partnership for Southern Equity. PSC is a longstanding racial justice, regional racial justice organization. So we focus on the Southeast portion of the US, but we have Just Communities is our one national initiative. We work across 4 issue areas: climate, health, the built environment, and the economy. And in 2021, we acquired Eco Districts. Eco Districts is or was an international organization with an international standard for sustainable and equitable development. There are 9 certified eco districts in the US and Africa. And so when we acquired eco districts, we kind of merged PSC's critical race analysis with the eco districts model. We revamped it as Just Communities to help land use and development professionals adopt new practices that can help us equalize all of our neighborhoods, help us improve quality of life in all of our neighborhoods, because so much of our quality of life is determined by where we live. Um, this is just a quick overview of our model. So our model is essentially a planning tool. It can be used for a development project, for a neighborhood plan, or even for a comprehensive city plan. And it is basically a tool that will help you incorporate these racial equity and climate resilience practices, whether it's a project or a plan. And the idea is that the more and more we adopt these practices, the more they're normalized until they become the industry standard. So if you're familiar with LEED, you probably know that the US Green Building Council has done an amazing job of standardizing these green building standards in the market. So we want to help everybody meet those standards across all norms, and really infuse strong racial equity measures. So whether you are a nonprofit community development, a CDC, or you are a local government agency, our vision is to really standardize these racially conscious and climate conscious practices across all neighborhoods, across all sectors. We ask in our model, we ask communities to make 22 commitments, and they are spread across these 5 areas of environment, opportunity, which is economic opportunity, health, belonging, and mobility. And then we break up the process into these 4 phases of groundwork, governance, roadmap, and then finally implementation. I like to always ground our conversations in our values. So I'll just read over them really quickly. We like to say that Just Communities is a bold reimagining of how communities grow. And we value radical truth and understanding of history, healing and liberation, honoring the wisdom and power of communities, racial equity as the superior growth model, a just climate transition, and policies that reform, repair, and reconcile past harms. We currently have 2 offerings. Our first is our accredited practitioners program. This is really where we teach our model to practitioners so that they can incorporate it into their daily work. So if you are in any of the industries that touch land use and development, architect, planner, builder, developer, real estate professional, community organizer, community development professional, and you want sort of an introductory level course to learning how you can incorporate these practices into your work, this is a great course for you. You can take the online version at your own time. We also offer the live version every quarter. So we have one coming up July 28th and 29th. It is 8 hours over 2 days, so 4 hours every day. And then you take a 1 hour test, which you will pass because it's an open book test. And then you get your accreditation. And you will join a network, I would say national, somewhat international network of 200 to 250 APs. And then the second thing we do is this webinar series that you all are participating in. This is really our platform to share really exemplary projects, initiatives with you all that demonstrate Just Community's values and practices. A quick plug for our webinar next month. It's going to be about municipal community benefits agreements. We're going to have Megan Niebler from Fair Shake, which is a nonprofit environmental litigation organization, and Aaron Goodman, who's with the city of Detroit. And he's going to talk about Detroit's experience with their CBA ordinance, which is one of the most robust CBA ordinances in the country. And now on to today's program. So today we want to talk about how we can engage communities in development decisions digitally. So how can we leverage the digital realm in gathering meaningful community input and building meaningful relationships? Because I think a lot of times there's an underlying assumption that because it's digital, that maybe the quality of the interaction is lost. So we really want to explore how we can actually make community engagement more meaningful. Those of you that know the Just Communities model know that I think the most valuable thing about our model is that we have a very robust shared decision-making and transparency process that is set up in the governance stage. So we have a very specific governance structure that we use. And we do that because we really believe that one of the ways that you change the outcomes of development is by changing and expanding the people that get to participate in making the decisions. So we really want to share two very interesting cases of how you can do that digitally. And so we have, and actually, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, Xavier. And then I think that you guys are going to do your own sharing of your screen. So let me do that. And I forgot what I was just saying, but oh, two very interesting cases from one of my favorite American cities, which is Chicago. And so we have Victoria Barrett and I'm sorry, I am looking for my notes. Sorry. And Kaitlin Cernak from CMAP, which is the Chicago Metro Agency for Planning. It's the regional planning agency for the metro area. And then we have my friend David Wilts, who, well, I can introduce him later, but I'm going to do a really quick formal sharing of Victoria and Caitlin's bio, and then they will give their presentation. So give me one moment. Let's see. Okay, so Kaitlin Cernak is program lead for content strategy and development at the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning. Her work in government communications and engagement focuses on using plain language and visual storytelling to demystify complex topics so people can meaningfully participate in public processes. Kaitlin holds a master's degree in urban planning and public policy from the University of Illinois, Chicago, and has previously worked in local government communications consulting. I love the plain language and visual storytelling to demystify complex topics. I also forgot to mention another good reason that we're doing this today is because CMAP received the Granicus. I'm forgetting the full title, but it's a government award for community engagement. And they received that award for their, I think it's called Safety for All initiative, but they will tell you more about it. I just wanted to make sure I shared that. And Victoria Barrett is the program lead for Safe Systems at CMAP. She has worked in multimodal transportation design and planning for more than 2 decades. Her current work is devoted to improving public safety while expanding mobility for vulnerable road users and historically excluded populations in the Chicago region. Her work centers on using the safe system approach to achieve broad impacts on design, policy, education, and collaboration. She was previously a consultant with Charlier Associates, not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, based in
Close enough.
Boulder, Colorado. Yes, so I'm going to hand it over to you all, ladies.
Great. Thank you,
Thank
Tsedey.
you.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you for that introduction, and thank you to Just Communities for inviting us to share this work. Um, we are going to jump in with a quick overview of what CMAP is and what we do. Um, CMAP, we love in urban planning, we love our acronyms, is the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning, as you said today. We are the federally designated metropolitan planning organization for Northeastern Illinois, as well as the statewide comprehensive planning organization for designated within Illinois. And just to give you a little view into the area in which we work, on the next slide, you'll see our region is comprised of 7 counties. 8.5 million residents live within our urbanized area in northeastern Illinois. 284 different municipalities in this area, and over 4,000 square miles of territory. So we have a really diverse range of land uses and obviously populations. We also have a little town you might have heard of called Chicago at the center of our region. And so that's a little bit about us as an agency. I'm going to jump straight into some facts about traffic fatalities. I'm going to start at the national level here, and kind of explain the need, the traffic safety crisis that we're in, both as a country and certainly in northeastern Illinois as a region. This is a chart that shows traffic fatalities in the United States between 2005 and 2024. The blue bars are the numbers of each year, and then the green trend line that you see is the 5-year rolling average of fatalities, which is there to indicate trend. So fatalities can vary a lot year to year, but you can see general trends. And you can see, and if we looked way back, you'd see a long decline since the 80s in the number of traffic fatalities in the United States. That decline generally continued until 2014. And then starting about then, we saw an uptick in the United States in our number of traffic fatalities, and a persistent trend, a systemic change in traffic fatalities in the United States. You can also see the spike that occurred during the COVID-19 pandemic in 2021 and 2022, which is a very complex topic, probably for another day. But regardless, you can see that not only are we, if we had a Vision Zero goal as a country, we're not only not making progress towards it, we're going in the wrong direction. And to put these numbers, this is 40,000 people every year who die on the roadways inside the United States of America. And to put that into perspective, I just want to explain that that would be the equivalent of a jumbo jet crashing once a week for a year and leaving no survivors. So just imagine for a second if a plane was crashing inside the United States on a weekly basis and killing everyone on board, we would probably stop flying the plane. There would be a huge outcry at that kind of violence, and we wouldn't tolerate it. But because traffic fatalities happen in different locations, at different times of day, under different circumstances, they're not understood collectively with the same impact, but indeed, their impact is great. So if you go to the next slide, we'll see those numbers at our regional scale. So this is now looking at the Chicago region and giving a little bit of background about why safety is so important at our agency. We have a very similar trend. This is a slightly different time frame here, but We also have an upward trend that started about 2014, 2015, and it's probably the same for the city and the region that you're tuning in from today, sadly. This is a very persistent change in traffic safety in this country, an upward trend, and one that our agency is focused on reversing. Another important dimension of traffic fatalities is that pedestrians and bicyclists represent a growing number of the fatalities that happen on our roadways. Um, the co-benefits of these modes of travel are great. They are often the modes of travel that people who can't afford to drive use. They're the modes that people choose as climate-friendly modes. They're the modes that people who cannot drive choose. So if you're under the age of 16 or over the age of 65, you have a much, less likely chance that you can operate a car. And there's affording a car and operating a car. So we really want to preserve the safety and mobility of these modes of travel. And so that's a key focus of this work. And then finally, I want to talk a little bit about the racial disparities that exist inside traffic safety. Again, these are systemic issues that persist on a yearly basis. This is the overrepresentation. This chart shows the overrepresentation of Black residents in our region in the number of traffic fatalities that happen here. So the green bar in this chart represent the Black proportion per population of fatalities in our region. So a systemic issue, one that is not simply explained, but we have a couple views into it. One is likely an exposure story, and exposure means how for how many minutes or how many miles you are exposed to traffic safety risk on a daily basis. And CMAP conducts a travel survey regularly, and we know from that data that Black residents in our region travel further distances and for more minutes every day in order to reach their daily destinations like shopping, school, jobs, healthcare. So there's a story there of exposure to traffic safety risks. It's kind of a land use problem, but we'll get into that later. Um, we also know that Black residents in our region are more likely to use modes that are more exposed to risk, like walking and bicycling and accessing transit. We know also that our most dangerous roads in our region run through communities with higher numbers of people of color. So our most dangerous highways and many of our most dangerous high volume, high speed arterials run through census tracts with higher percentages of people of color. So it's a proximity to dangerous locations as well. And I've just showed you some like persistent systemic issues in traffic safety. I also want to explain that it doesn't need to be that way. The United States is an outlier and not in a good way in terms of the number of fatalities per population that we have in traffic crashes. So if you compare the United States to countries like Canada and Australia that do have similar land use patterns, we are more than 3 times the risk of dying on our roadways per population than people in those countries. And if you look at countries that do have different development patterns and probably are better served by national transit systems, those risks drop off even further in places like Sweden and United Kingdom. And one of the things that many of those countries on the chart that are performing better are doing is adopting something called the safe system approach to traffic safety. I could talk for a whole webinar about the safe system approach, which I will not do today, but I just want to note that there is a big shift happening in how we're thinking about traffic safety, the types of tools that we need to address it. And a lot of it is trying to get to some of the root causes that introduce risk and exposure into our system. One of the important components of this systemic thinking, and I've alluded to this in the previous slides, is this idea that there are broad societal factors at play, especially in the United States, that are adding to risk in the amount in our travel network. And that is a new way of thinking about traffic safety. Traditionally, traffic safety has been about predicting how much people want to travel, disperse land use patterns, kind of sending people out on the network and then imposing countermeasures on specific locations to make them safer based on their crash history. But as we move towards a really deeper understanding of what is adding risk to the network in the United States, it has to do with how much we expect people to travel, how fast we expect people to travel, because ultimately, speed and travel are risk and they do kill. And so, how can we start to minimize some of those risks in a broad way to have the kind of outcomes that some of these other countries have? So I've presented a little bit about the shift in thinking that our agency is trying to do and the need for traffic safety given our regional crisis and indeed our national crisis. In 2022, our agency applied for a U.S. Department of Transportation Safe Streets for All grant to do a regional safety action plan, and we were awarded that grant, which was very fortunate. That plan took the form of 6 county level safety action plans, which you can see here all assembled. We had one county not participate in this project. If you're interested, you can scan that QR code and you'll be taken to the engagement site where they are all posted. But this was the crux of this engagement program that we're going to talk about today. So these county safety action plans and this Safe Travel for All project had some specific goals in mind, which are really important in understanding how we addressed engagement. We really wanted plans that were local enough that people had ownership of them. So counties were a nice division, a nice way to divide some local ownership of these county safety action plans. And each of our counties has a different character and indeed different safety issues. So dividing them in this way allowed us to kind of create a sense of ownership and reflect the local context of each of these counties. A very important goal of these plans was to qualify all the municipalities and counties in our region for federal implementation funding. The Safe Streets for All program requires a qualifying safety action plan in order to leverage the implementation funding. So we followed the federal guidance very closely, which was quite robust and honestly really improved the quality of our plans at the time that those guidelines were established, and robust community engagement was a part of that. We really wanted to engage our partners in communities with higher crash rates. Those were often our high need communities already. So we knew that when it came to finding people to serve on steering committees and when we started to think about outreach efforts, that was going to be a goal here. And then really we needed to talk about the traditional data sources that we use in traffic safety, which is crash report data. And I'm going to get into that on the next slide a little bit, and amplify what we know from crash data with the lived experience of the people inside these county plans. And finally, we incorporated the safe system approach into our thinking there. So quickly, why community engagement on traffic safety is so important. As I just referred to, safety has long used crash report data as the primary and possibly only source of data in understanding what is happening on the ground in terms of traffic safety. I don't need to explain to you that crash reports are filled out by police officers. So you must leverage the involvement of a police officer to report a crash. That causes a lot of biases in the data. It also causes a huge amount of underreporting. So there's a growing body of research that shows that crashes are underreported possibly to a degree of 40% if it's a bicycle and pedestrian crash in an area of the region that has a high number of people of color. There are a lot of reasons why this is true, but the takeaway is that we are not getting the whole story from crash report data. We might be missing 60%. We might be missing 40% of the story if we rely on crash data alone. Near misses are not reported in crash data, and many of us who travel on our roadways every day can say we see a lot of really scary things happen that randomly, luckily do not result in a crash, but they should. That type of data is really important in understanding where risk is present on our roadways. In fact, places on maps that don't have crashes assigned to them are assumed to be safe. But we learned through community engagement that those are the places that people avoid traveling, especially on foot and on bicycle, because they are so unsafe. So we really needed to try to understand how people felt on the travel network, in addition to where crashes were occurring. And just the qualitative experience for different modes of travel cannot be understood with the crash report data. What it feels like to walk along a busy arterial, what it feels like to cross a busy arterial when you're trying to get to a bus stop or crossing to get to the bus stop on the other side of the street. Those are experiences we really wanted to capture. And one of the things that we'll talk a little bit more about, this is an example of a quote from our Kane County Safety Action Plan. 27% of VRU crashes, that's crashes of vulnerable road users, those are people walking and bicycling, occurred in areas of persistent poverty within Kane County. Only 3% of Kane County's land is considered to be an area of persistent poverty. So you can see this alignment of severe and fatal crashes happening in high need areas where they are also more likely to be unreported. So it was really important to us to get to this engagement piece as part of this project. And so I just want to I'm going to pass it off to Kaitlin now to talk about our engagement program. But again, I just want to underline that we have like systemic issues in traffic safety that really require robust community engagement. And traffic safety, because it has been so associated with policing over so many years, also suffers a fair amount of mistrust among community stakeholders. And we wanted to do what we could in part of this project to rebuild some of that trust through authentic, multifaceted engagement techniques that allowed people to share their experiences. And Kaitlin's going to tell us a little bit more about that now.
And really quickly, Caitlin, before you start, I forgot to mention to the audience, if you have any questions, please drop them in the Q&A. I'm keeping an eye out. So, okay, go ahead, Caitlin.
All right. Thank you. Okay. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, awesome. All right. So picking up where Vicky left off, our approach really focused on two main goals of reaching those people and communities that are most harmed by crashes and also that have traditionally not been included in the traffic safety planning process. So we really wanted to foster a consistent two-way flow of information, so informing our audiences and learning from them through a whole bunch of tactics listed here: events, steering committees, open houses, pop-ups. Given the theme of today, I'm going to focus most on our digital engagement. So our goals and priorities were, again, to capture those day-to-day experiences that are not represented in the data. To do that, we needed two-way communication. We needed to explain to our audience, a lot of them know, but sort of present some of this information about traffic safety, and most importantly, hear back from them about what they're seeing and experiencing every day. So to do that, we really wanted to meet people where they are, right in their hand, right on their phone. The platform that we used has really great mobile functionality and was really user-friendly. So that was an important thing to us. And when we were putting everything together, accessibility was also at the front of our minds. So using plain language, not having this loaded up with technical jargon was really important. As a baseline, we translated everything into Spanish since that large population in the Chicago region speaks Spanish. And I'm breaking my own jargon rule here, but for the disability community, we look to ADA best practices, and WCAG is the digital component of accessibility guidelines. So then to get the word out there about this, we also created strong, consistent branding to pull everything together under one regional umbrella that hosts all of these plans. We provided all this branding and communications toolkits and things to each of the teams working on the project. And then I also just wanted to touch on some internal communications as we were kicking off the project. We realized that we have 6 big projects, each with their own big team. So naturally, not everyone has the same sort of baseline familiarity with equity issues in traffic safety or equitable public engagement. So our consultant put together these really great learning circles that were an opportunity to really improve our impact and for teams to share among each other sort of how equity was showing up in different contexts like rural and urban. We have a huge range of environments in our region. This is the platform that we use. CMAP uses Granicus for our digital engagement. It was recently rebranded as Sentiment and Feedback. It was formerly Engagement HQ, so EHQ, if you hear me say that, I'm referencing this tool. The structure that we landed on was having a main Safe Travel for All county-wide hub that hosted like the generic project information, safety, public safety or traffic safety messages. And then linked within that was each of the county specific plans, which were more streamlined and really got to like the engagement part of it. So this is an example of the Will County, the project page within the hub. So you'll see just light info at the top, short scroll down to our 2 main digital engagement tools, which were an interactive safety hotspots map and a survey. So here's just a little taste of what the map was like. You could zoom, all the way into like your street corner. We had several different types of pins that folks could drop on here, referencing roads, sidewalks, transit, bike, intersections, and that was really helpful on the back end when analyzing this qualitative data. People could add pictures, people could, give a thumbs up to each other's comments. And then the second digital tool we used was a survey. We provided about 10 questions, English and Spanish, plain language, really framed these around the user experience. Combination of like multiple choice, ranking, and some open-ended questions too. And so, kind of getting to what we've been talking about reaching these specific communities that are disproportionately harmed and underrepresented, we wanted to be able to track who we were engaging with to gauge if we were like meeting those goals. So we had a lot of internal discussion about like what is the best way to get this information without creating barriers to participation. Like people don't want to create a password and a login to participate. And also just acknowledging this lack of trust with providing, personal information. So what we landed on was after the main survey questions, we had just a brief survey section asking specifically about some of the things that we find to be related to traffic safety, with a disclaimer about why we're asking these questions and how we would use that information to hopefully build some more trust. This is like blurry and complicated, but I wanted to show you with that information, we would periodically download it, plug it into a dashboard, and this would help us, it's not perfect. There's nuance we're missing, but it would help us like spot gaps and where we maybe need to like pivot or like, reach out to another partner to hit some of our targeted groups. Again, this platform is only useful if people visit it. So we created a whole suite of pre-designed like materials and templates that our partners could deploy to drive traffic to the online platform. And we were really pleased with our results. We exceeded our engagement goal by more than 50%. We had thousands of hotspot map pins, survey responses, and over 17,000 visitors to the websites. And with that, I will hand it back to Vicki to talk about what we did with all this great information.
Yeah, this is gonna be really quick. I just want to give a couple examples of how we used the input that we got during our engagement phase. Our county safety action plans all included a high injury network. We validated the high injury network with the map data. So this is an example from the DuPage County Safety Action Plan. There's a high injury network on the left, and they did a direct comparison to make sure that the community's feedback kind of supported what the crash data had showed. So kind of layered approach to identifying need. The next example is the prioritization of projects. So we were able to go to the communities that were overrepresented in the crash data and use locations within that community as examples of projects inside our safety action plans. We weren't necessarily creating the project or designing the roadway, but we were saying these types of risks exist at a lot of different locations, in this configuration of undivided 2-lane local roads. But as an example, we're going to pick out a community that we heard a lot of feedback from in terms of risk. So we were able to kind of match community input with our example locations in our project ideas. And then finally, the recommendations that we wrote related to policies like speed limit reductions or, expanding or improving the tools that are used to keep people in compliance with speed limits. We were really able to build in some thoughtful community-based feedback about how to mitigate the negative impacts that could be involved with, increased enforcement. So how can we write recommendations that allow communities to demand certain types of expectations when it comes to how messaging will happen and how enforcement will occur? Finally, it was really an idea to convey the systemic nature of these issues and the need for systemic change.
And I think in the interest of time, we'll leave it there. Oh, you're muted today.
Thank you guys so much. Okay, so we're gonna shift to David and then we will come back to do a little Q&A. So let me just quickly pull up David's bio. So David, I know, has extensive background in on the corporate side in digital master planning and digital integration for all these big corporations. And then he came into our development world and has been leading a lot of development projects. And he is currently leading a digital equity plan for a redevelopment project on the south side of Chicago. So that's what he's going to talk to us about. So David Wilts has over 30 years of experience creating precedent-setting buildings and districts around the world. He's the founder of Digital Master Planning and leads development projects on behalf of owners. DMP also provides strategic and management consulting services to AEC firms. I think AEC is architecture, engineering, and construction.
Consulting or
Okay.
construction. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay. DMP also has created a full life cycle asset management platform for real estate, which greatly improves the productivity of people and capital to make projects pencil in today's very challenging market. All right.
That's a mouthful. I'm sorry I made you read that. We should have just skipped it.
It's concise.
Thank you, and thank you for being here. I really appreciated, the last presentation. I'm going to blaze through these slides very quickly so we can have as much time for Q&A at the end as possible. Here we go. So, I'm going to focus on digital equity and how we are implementing a digital equity framework for the Woodlawn Central development on the south side of Chicago. And I'm assuming all of you can read well, so I'm not going to read the bullet points on the slides. I'm just going to add color as we go. So when COVID hit, all of a sudden everybody realized how bad the digital equity situation was. And that was primarily because kids weren't at school, and the only way they could participate in school was through digital means. And so that prompted the Biden administration to advance more funding through the National Telecommunications and Information Administration to do the BEAD project as well as the Digital Equity Act. And this was a ton of money that was centered around improving access to high-speed internet across the country in both urban and rural areas. And to get the money, the state had to put together a program to say how they're going to use it. So this prompted every state in the country to develop a digital equity plan as well as a deployment and implementation plan. Fast forward to the current administration, and the digital equity funding was removed, and the local initiatives, a lot of them ended, unfortunately. So how can we still see this happen, and how can we still implement this? Well, what we'd like to do is share how we're doing this with the Woodlawn Central development, and also share some best practices we found from other projects around the country that we're incorporating. So the Woodlawn Central project is a transit-oriented mixed-use development on the south side. We don't use the term redevelopment, we use the term regeneration, because everything in this community used to be there. And what we're doing with the scale of our project is regenerating a business district because we're doing a district scale development. In the picture here, you're seeing the Apostolic Church of God, which is the second largest church in the city of Chicago. The church owns 13 acres of land. The center parcel where the church is about 3 acres, and there are 9 acres of on-grade parking that we're developing as part of the project. And this is led by the church and Bishop Brazier and his son, J. Byron Brazier, and I have the opportunity to work with them as the lead developer on the project. So overall, we're going to have 870 residential units, 160 key hotel, 50 to 80,000 square feet of commercial space. And we're going to have senior housing, workforce housing, affordable housing, the whole gamut. And because of the scale of the development, we'll have enough foot traffic to also regenerate a small commercial district in this neighborhood. Now, everybody typically is like, what? You're developing on the south side? Well, we have some neighbors. One pesky neighbor, a block east and a block north, like blocked off all the streets around us because they had their big opening day last week. And it was troublesome, but, you know, we want to be good neighbors, so we let them share our parking lots. But we have that, you know, new civic presidential thing a few blocks away, which is nice. It's good to have them in the neighborhood. But we also have the University of Chicago 2 blocks north of us, too. And where the project is, we actually share the church's parking lots with the university during the weekdays. So they park on our empty lots during the weekdays, and therefore the university shuttle bus and security, we're under the umbrella for both. So the shuttle bus comes through every 10 minutes, and we're really tied into that. And what we really are trying to emphasize, and it's not obvious from the screen, but Jackson Park, which is on the lakefront, is the area you see on the right-hand side of the screen. So we're literally a block away from Jackson Park and the lakefront and golf courses, marinas, everything. So we are developing an equitable innovation district through our project, and we look at digital equity in multiple ways. So digital connectivity, digital tools, digital skills, digital careers, and then also digital community engagement. So one project and example we're leveraging is the work of the CHA, and Jeremy Dunn, my friend, leads the digital equity efforts there. And they have 9 different community digital resource centers at 9 different CHA housing locations. And it's a really unique model because a person from the community works in the digital resource center. They're there every day during the week, and they help people with anything they need. It could be a resume. It could be helping to like create a LinkedIn account. It could be helping to apply for a job. It could be, how do I use this tablet my grandson gave to me? I don't know anything about it. And so they have a great program, and we're following a lot of the great examples that they are providing. Flipping across to the west side of our country, in Los Angeles, the SOLA development group created the SOLA Tech Center. I visited this place about a year and a half ago through ULI, and it's a fantastic, fantastic resource for the community because it really focuses on helping young folks to realize that they can have careers in media, have careers in computers, have careers in all of these other different aspects of our economy that they may not have considered. Also, they have really great gaming PCs there. So people who couldn't maybe afford those computers at home can go and socialize with their friends through the gaming center. But if they want to use the computers, they have to actually go there and do their homework and show they did their homework before they can get access to the computer, which is a good incentive, I think. But they focus mostly on around kindergarten through age 24. So it's a different. The CHA is open to everybody. The SOLA Center is really focused on a younger crowd. And then in Boston, there's the Year Up organization, where it's a significantly effective workforce training program. And this is more for adults, where they're helping to train and provide experience and then access to jobs so people can become a part of the digital economy. And what I mean by digital economy is it's exactly what that kind of sounds like. It's working for any of the big computer firms, software firms, but also Comcast and jobs like that, where you're actually installing high-speed internet and things like that. Then also there's the Harlem Children's Zone, and this has a lot in common with SOLA, but they also are really, and I realize my formatting is horrible on this slide now. I apologize. I'm cutting off the words, at least on my view. But they're also doing a great job focusing on education and workforce and social services and leveraging their digital resources to help build community with the Children's Zone and incorporating digital equity into their overall program. So if you want to compare all of these, they have, so the different organizations are across the top of the slide, and each one has a slightly different core purpose and slightly different delivery model and intensity depending on what they're teaching or sharing. And then they all have unique differentiators. And some are integrated with the real estate development and others are not. And so we wanted to provide this kind of cross-section of what digital equity is currently in this country, how it's working in different cities across the country, and also how we're implementing these things with our development at Woodlawn Central. And finally, we see this as a multi-layered approach. And we look at diversity through 3 different lenses. Age, we want a very diverse age spread in our community. We're looking for diversity in income, and we're looking for diversity in culture. And we're looking with our digital resource center that we will be building to we're going to build it around what we hear the community most needs, and it will change over time. So we really look at what we're doing as dynamic and agile so we can respond to the community's needs as new needs arise. And at the core of this, I have a background in smart cities and digital buildings. So we're putting in an extraordinarily robust digital infrastructure, tying all of the buildings and the community together. But we'll also have a very well, and we'll leverage that for operations and efficiency, but also we'll have ubiquitous high-speed internet covering the entire development. And we'll also be able to have a strong online presence and grow our community digitally as well. So that's it. Thank you. You're muted. Sorry.
I'm the worst at this stuff. That was so short,
Well,
but
I can go into
very
way more
thorough.
detail, but I wanted there to still be some time for questions
Yeah.
and answers at the end. I think a few things I can share. Sola Impact is led by Martin Muoto and Gray Lusk, and they have really created a lot of innovative things there, especially serving historically underinvested Black and Brown communities. So we really are big fans of what they've done, especially around neighborhood reinvestment. And we see that, with this digital strategy we're building, we can actually greatly improve economic mobility. And we see it as a kind of gateway to providing folks with new opportunities in career paths and things they may not have ever considered. And also, what we realize through doing the work we're doing, it's an opportunity for impact investment too. And a lot of the times when you're looking at real estate investment, people are just looking at the financial returns. And we really have a spectacular opportunity to create a new model that makes the existing model obsolete and
Mhm.
provides a positive community return on investment as well.
Mhm. Mhm. Um, David, can you stop sharing your
Sure.
presentation? And we have a question for you. Someone said they would like to know more about the solar impact.
Um, So Sola Impact is a for-profit development group based
Oh,
in
that's
Los
the name.
Angeles.
That's the name.
Yeah,
Okay, got
yeah.
it. Okay. Oh, okay. I think they thought you said
I
solar,
said
but
solar.
solar,
Yeah,
which is
sorry. Yeah,
South
we're
LA.
all about renewables too, and we're gonna have PVs on the roof. Don't you worry.
But SOLA stands for South LA, is that right?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
okay,
SOLA. Sola Impact is the
okay,
organization.
okay. Well, I have a couple of questions for you guys, and maybe other folks will too. Uh, so I know you said we shouldn't get into this, Victoria, but I am dying to know, how do traffic fatalities go up during a pandemic when folks are inside?
Oh, great question. Well, I think there's actually the research on this is just starting to come out. People took a long time for people to have enough time to analyze the data. There's a
Yeah.
couple theories. One, first of all, it became because roadways were less congested, it became very easy for people to speed aggressively, which is, over 100 miles per hour on highways inside urban areas. So there were a lot of single car crashes during that time because people would recklessly drive and then hit a fixed object or something like that. That was part of the story. There's also, we were instructed to only travel for emergency needs, to
Mhm.
go to the grocery and stuff. So what ended up happening, we think there's some data to show that the people that did decide to travel during COVID were already a population of people that would take risks because most people
Mhm.
decided not to travel if they didn't need to. So
Yeah.
it might have been a self-selected high risk population. There was a incident high rate of not using seatbelts, a high rate of speeding, high rate of impairment in combination. So that you saw really high risk behaviors in combination. Very stressful times, people were sick, people were worried about the public health emergency, financial stress. So kind
Yeah.
of compounded a lot
Yeah.
of societal
Wow.
issues.
Okay. There's someone from the audience that's asking, have you used traffic fatality data disaggregated by race as a proxy for some kind of historic disinvestment, eminent domain, or urban renewal?
No,
Okay.
we haven't done that specifically. There are a lot of qualitative data sources and quantitative data sources. There are maps about redlining and that you can use to try to understand where traffic fatalities are happening. That would be an excellent project
Yeah.
to do in combination. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting thought. Let's see. Somebody else, Adrian is saying a large company wants to put a data center, data exchange right next to a transit station in Atlanta. Are we fighting it? Are your data resource centers the same as data centers? No.
No, no. And actually, that's a great question. Think of these as community resource centers that just happen to focus on, using computers safely and really having access to the digital economy. What we're seeing a lot of is that, the basis of digital equity comes down to having access to high speed internet,
Hmm.
having the tools to use it, so the tablets, the laptops, and the phones, and then also having the skills to use it and participate, and also not succumb to phishing and cyber crime and things like that.
Right.
And so, what's interesting is from talking with my friend Jeremy at CHA, there's so much fear around the internet now, which is very well founded
Mhm.
considering all of the crime that's happening and the cyber crime. And so people are afraid to participate because they don't want to give their information away and things like that, which is, you should be scared and play it safe. But also people are afraid of breaking their computer or doing something wrong and not
Mm.
knowing it and then not being able to use the tool anymore. And so a lot of digital equity at the end of the day is overcoming the fear and being able to use the tools and participate safely.
Yeah. How did you get the word out about the data resource centers?
So we haven't built ours yet. We are in the process of having that be, central to the overall development. But I've participated in other district scale projects that have these, and
Okay.
really, we look at it as an additional amenity that
Hmm.
we're sharing with our residential tenants. And hey, there's the digital resource center, and also the church is in many ways the center of
Oh,
the
right.
community already. So it's like, hey, we got this new thing, come check it out. So
Gotcha.
we can
Okay.
we're really engaged in the community as it is, so it's kind of like we're already poised for success.
Yeah. So some of the fears that you raised, the fears that people have about, engaging in all this digital stuff. I was going to ask you, Kaitlin, because I'm sure you guys experience similar challenges. Um, how did you deal with that? And I also wanted to ask you specifically, um, you mentioned that you guys had two-way communication, and I wasn't sure what that did that mean that like someone would submit information and you would actually be able to ask them questions about what they gave you?
Sure. So for the first part, we asked those sort of demographic questions, but did not require people
Okay.
to give personally identifiable information. So we didn't ask for their name or their address. There was sort of a field like, where do you live? Your cross streets or your block is, we sort of,
Hmm.
um, it- and I think we understood that for some people that would be a barrier, but that's why we chose not to ask people to like provide their name, email, and like log in or anything.
Mhm.
And then as far as two-way communication, and maybe this is maybe being jargony, that's kind of like a comms term for like we're providing information and we're receiving information, as opposed
Oh, I
to
see. Okay.
some public participation is so one way. It's just about
Right.
informing, but we
Right.
wanted to go to a deeper, more meaningful level where we're informing and being informed. So, but
Gotcha.
there actually were ways that people could submit questions through the EHQ platform or
Okay.
whatever
Okay.
it's called now. I keep forgetting. And then we had like the project leads and their contact information listed. So Vicky, I'm sure you experienced, we would get questions and, requests for presentations and that kind of stuff too. So we
Absolutely.
tried to make ourselves
Absolutely.
available.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, the survey that you asked people to complete, was that optional or did they have to do it if they were going to give you the other information?
That's a good question. I think they were all required fields.
Okay.
I could
Okay.
try to confirm.
I was
We
just
had a lot
curious.
of back and forth on that. And
Yeah.
even for in-person engagement, we had paper copies of that and just sort of asked, like, if you're
Mhm.
comfortable, and just sort of explaining these are our goals and it's helpful. It's not identifiable. We're keeping it all private. But
Yeah.
if you're willing to share some information about yourself, it helps us.
Yeah.
And we did get some responses that way too.
Okay. Belinda is saying, are more pedestrian I think she means fatality,
But
but she says facilities in underrepresented communities fatalities due to less sidewalks and our neighbors and people watching their digital devices. Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. I'm in the process of answering it, but it is a complex issue. Um, it is often the case that the infrastructure is of lower quality in communities of color. That is definitely a component of this. And we've often implemented traffic calming infrastructure. We say like on demand, meaning that communities, blocks can get together and get petitions and petition for a speed hump or petition for improved crosswalks, which is really the wrong way to implement speed management things. They
Hmm.
should be done systemically across places where speeding is contributing to risk. So that's an inequity in how we've implemented traffic
Hmm.
calming measures.
Hmm.
That's also a factor. But another thing that happens in disinvested communities, we've built for speed in this country, even in our cities. We have big, wide roads that encourage fast speeds. And when buildings alongside those streets are vacant or dark, they don't have the same presence in terms of creating visual friction. They're maybe not generating a lot of pedestrian trips. Maybe the buildings don't exist at all and it's open fields next to the roadway. And those all are signals to drivers to go faster on roadways. It
Hmm.
is speed that kills most people on our roadways. And so the circumstances and the landscapes around our streets really provide signal inputs to drivers. And we need to do a better job of making those signals things like visual friction, tighter spaces, narrower lanes, so that people stop speeding because ultimately it's the kinetic energy and the speed
Right.
that's killing people. Yeah.
Right. Okay. I know that we are coming up on our time. I don't see any more questions from the audience. Let me see. Great. Oh, okay. This you all are just sharing info. I had one more question for you, David. When you put up the slide about the comparison of all of the other cities and programs that you shared, um, I just wanted to see, or if you could tell us which other ones are, I think you said real estate integrated, like are part of a bigger development. Is it just Harlem's Children's Zone that's like that?
No, CHA's is
Oh,
focused on providing services within their development. And
okay.
so they have 9 different locations distributed across the south and west side. There are none on the north side, which they realize is a shortcoming they're trying to fix.
Okay.
But then also with SOLA in LA, they look at their location as a central thing for every one of their developments. So it's not directly tied to a specific residential building or anything. It's part of a different development complex that they have, but it's pretty easy to get to through public transportation, and they have a
Okay.
really good
Okay.
participation rate. So it's looked at as a shared resource across all of their different buildings in
Yeah.
there that they
Okay.
manage.
I just wanted to lift that up because I think
Yeah.
it's a really special model when you're like place-based and you guys are right there. So like they know where to find you and you're going to be tracking them for a long because that's where they live.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to lift up that model.
Thank you.
And
Yeah.
it ties back into our whole, thing about land use. So commend all of you for this amazing work that you're doing and just thank you for giving us your time today. I think we covered all of the questions. Oh, our roundup, this will be the last one. Are roundabouts a better solution for safer streets?
Yeah.
Yes.
Roundabouts are a lot of traffic safety experts' favorite type of
Oh, and I see you.
intersection.
Okay.
There's no cars coming at each other from different directions in roundabouts, and that really
Yeah.
eliminates conflicts and also disperses energy across many vectors. And they have a great safety performance. They're not always possible. They require a lot of space. You have to design bicycle and pedestrian crossings and throughput
Oh,
very
okay.
carefully. They
Yeah.
can be a little bit tricky that way if they're big. So keep them small, fit them in. They're great solutions. Yeah.
I find them a little annoying sometimes because I get lost. Like I forget where to get off of them. But
Yeah. But you
now
always have
that I
another
know that
chance.
they're safer, I won't complain.
I've been through a roundabout more than once, like to try to figure out where I'm going. No shame.
Okay, well, thank you for joining us, everyone. Please come back next month. And thank you to all of our speakers. And we'll see you again soon.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
Patty. Thank you.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.